When I got that letter in the mail, bold red letters screaming, "Delinquent WA fine, $70,000 due immediately," I thought it was a joke. Then I realized it wasn't. My stomach dropped. The paper trembled in my hand as I read line after line of accusations. Unapproved landscaping, unauthorized construction, violation of community standards. The kicker: I didn't even live in their community. My name's Daniel McCarthy. I'm 52, a retired civil engineer, and a man who loves peace, quiet, and the sound of pine trees swaying in the mountain wind. A year ago, I bought a small 3-acre plot outside the fancy gated subdivision of Willow Ridge Estates. My little cabin sat beyond their development, tucked behind a stretch of forest. To get to it, though, I had to drive through their entrance road. That road, paved, landscaped, and full of smugly worded, "WA property only" signs, was built 20 years ago. What they didn't know was that it sat entirely on an easement that crossed my land. When I bought the property, I had studied every inch of those old maps and deeds. My grandfather had originally owned the entire valley before selling parcels off in the 1980s. What he kept was a narrow stretch that the developers later used for their main road. They had a right of way, but they didn't own the soil beneath their asphalt. And I never thought that fact would matter, until they came after me. It started small. I got letters from the WA complaining about the eyesore of my dirt driveway visible from their neighborhood. Then, they accused me of illegally using their road. I politely reminded them of the easement agreement on file with the county. Their president, a woman named Karen Dalton, yes, her real name, didn't like that answer. "Mr. McCarthy," she said one afternoon when she and 2 board members marched down my driveway in pastel blazers and perfect hair, "you are not part of our community. You cannot use our private roads to access your property. Either pay association dues or find another route." I laughed. "Unless you've built me a helicopter pad, that road is the only route in or out. And it's my land underneath it. You're the ones using my property." Her face turned red. "We'll see what the board says about that." 2 weeks later came the fine, $70,000. Apparently, they held a special meeting and voted to charge me for trespassing, damages, and noncompliance. I nearly choked on my coffee reading it. I went to the county office, showed them the deeds, and confirmed everything was still in my name. The clerk chuckled. "Mr. McCarthy, they don't have a leg to stand on. But you could make life very interesting for them if you wanted." And that's when the idea began to form. I didn't retaliate out of anger. I retaliated out of principle. Over the next month, I quietly hired a surveyor to restake the property lines. The orange flags fluttered right along the edges of their main road, the very lifeline of Willow Ridge Estates. Then, I had my lawyer draft a formal notice, effective immediately. All use of the road by non-permitted parties was suspended until a new easement agreement was negotiated. In other words, I was closing the only road into their gated paradise. The WA laughed at first. Then, when the construction crew I hired showed up to install a security gate at the start of my land, the laughter stopped. Homeowners lined the street, shouting, recording with their phones. Karen stormed up, waving her clipboard. "You can't block us. This is illegal." "Actually," I said calmly, "the original easement expired when the developers transferred ownership without renewing the agreement. I checked. Twice. So unless you'd like to renegotiate, the road is private." Within hours, the HOA's lawyer was on the phone, threatening lawsuits and injunctions. But they couldn't change the facts. Their multi-million-dollar neighborhood had exactly one way in and out, and I owned it. By the next morning, my inbox was full of apology emails from homeowners who had once cheered Karen's crusade against me. They wanted to work something out. For the first time, Karen herself called me, not to yell, but to plead. "Mr. McCarthy, please. There are families here. Kids need to get to school." "We didn't know." I paused, letting her words hang. "That's the problem, Karen. You didn't ask. You assumed." I told her I wasn't looking for revenge, just respect. So I offered them a new deal. I'd grant the WA a renewed permanent easement, under one condition. They'd pay me $1 per year and publicly issue an apology for their harassment, retracting every false claim and fine. She didn't want to do it. Her pride wouldn't allow it. But when the homeowners realized that without my approval, they couldn't even get mail or emergency services, the vote was unanimous. 2 weeks later, I stood at the town hall meeting as Karen, red-faced and trembling, read the official statement. "Greater than, we, the Willow Ridge WA, hereby apologize to Mr. Daniel McCarthy for any distress caused by our prior actions and acknowledge his rightful ownership of the land upon which Willow Ridge Road is built. The moment she finished, I smiled, signed the new easement, and handed her the dollar bill. Pleasure doing business, I said. Word spread fast. The story hit local news. Man fined $70,000 by WA turns out to own their only road. I became something of a folk hero in the area. Even the county commissioner called to congratulate me for reminding certain folks that power doesn't mean ownership. Now, every time I drive down that smooth, tree-lined road into my peaceful cabin, I see the HOA's freshly installed sign at the gate. Private road, access granted by Daniel McCarthy. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about standing your ground, even when everyone tells you to roll over. Because sometimes the people who think they own the world forget that the ground beneath their feet belongs to someone else. And if you're ever in Willow Ridge, remember this, the prettiest road in town. It's mine.